What's going on, everyone? What's going on? Welcome to
Hey,
another episode of Carbonate Bounty BS. How's everyone doing this week?
doing great.
Good. Excellent.
Great.
Salante.
Yeah, you got one of those
Definitely.
like splash pads or whatever for the backyard. It's been awesome. Can't get my niece and nephew out of here.
All
Those are
right.
fun. Don't have me that water bill, but that'll be all right for you. Right?
Whatever. Listen, I don't care. I'm not thinking about that now. I'm thinking about the best
Oh, of
$20
course.
I've ever spent at Costco.
Right. We'll worry about that next month.
Yeah.
Neither here nor there. But before we get in today's special episode, new series we're trying out, let's let our guy DP let you guys know where to find us at.
Nerdcyclopedia.com. People, go to your favorite website and click on your favorite social media platforms at us. At Nerdcyclopedia on Twitter, Facebook, and also Instagram and TikTok. If you're listening to us on podcasts, we are iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast, we are there. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. Thank you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and also that notification button. So anytime that we're on, you know that we're on. If you're watching us on Facebook, thank you as well. Join our Carbonite Bounty BS, a Star Wars group. Get all your favorite memes and also everything on as far as Star Wars that we talk about on there. Leave us some feedback too. Let us know what you think on everything that we talk about on this show. Nerds at nerdcyclopedia.com. We love getting your feedback.
Well said. And before we dive into really this week's episode and the gist of it, just quick news and notes as far as everybody. I know we talked about the Galactic Star Cruiser and it's shutting down in September. It's actually sold out. Before we get into it, it will not be reimagined. So Disney has made the decision to not reimagine
it's sold out because they limited the number of flights.
Yeah,
it's not sold out because people are clamoring to go.
Oh, for sure, yeah. But they're not reimagining it. They wrote in the press release today that it's been the IRS, and frankly enough, okayed the $300 million write-off. So they were happy with that. They were happy with the number. So I don't know legally how long it's a statute of when they can repurpose the land, but it's a $300 million write-off that the IRS has allowed. So it will not be reopening or repurposed.
You know those Legends novels, T. Mitch, where like Han Solo would just be like doing something, and then they'd be like, "And now airline travel."
Like, why would be like, that weird infomercial like mid-episode.
Yeah, that always like that's exactly what this Galactic Cruiser is. It's the part of those Legends novels where you're just like, just get to the part where you're fighting Thrawn. Just get there, get there. And he's got some weird buddy that because Chewie's not around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anyway,
and
it's not a shock. Not a
Never
shock to me
there.
that didn't work out, right?
Nope.
Nope.
Not my favorite parts of those stories.
For sure. But yeah, guys, that's really the gist of it. We kind of touched on Ray Stevenson last week. But I will say that this train known as Ahsoka and DP, we've been talking, this is like, I've never seen hype like this for the show. I mean, I know we talked about The Mandalorian, but it seems like this Ahsoka series, like, there is so much promo, so much talk. I mean, this has been like really, really something big. So very excited. Yeah.
Super, it's Dave Filoni's pet project. He's solely doing this on his own for the most part and everything. So it's all on him if it goes down like that. But
no pressure. No pressure.
It stinks. We know who to call.
Pressure. Oh yeah.
Pressure.
For sure. But he's done so much great stuff on the Clone Wars, obviously. Rebels and everything. Anything that he touches his hand on pretty much is really good stuff. And pretty much he's the one that understands Star Wars to me, other than his mentor, George Lucas and everything. So he sort of gets like all the nuance and everything with these characters, creating characters for the universe and just carry on a tradition that, George Lucas started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he understands where he can take the characters and how much change he can do in the story. So
hopefully we get another Chrysanthemum view because I mean we talked about that check. I mean that's the expensive cost. You normally write 2 episodes out, so that's like they might have to put that in the Star Cruiser They might add that in the Star Cruiser settlement here.
They just built a whole monument to that suit,
It must be, man.
right where that Star Cruiser was.
And he completely decimates everybody on it. Just kills them. He throws them through windows and unleashes hell on them. Everybody.
Right. But yeah, hopefully we get to see more of that. But yeah, guys, diving into this week, we have a special episode, and we're going to dive into our Star Wars What If series. And the first one will be What If Mace Windu Killed Palpatine, which is something we've all discussed. I'm sure you guys discussed. So who wants to lead into this? We'll let somebody kind of start off the prologue, and we'll dive into our story and what we think happens.
Perhaps the best thing for us to do, T. Mitch, would be to actually just recap what did happen.
Yeah,
because
that's a good start.
Then we'll know what we're changing.
Well, what happened was we got a continuation of the story. So Mace had to get defeated because you can't. I mean, Palpatine has to live, has to move on in the story. Otherwise, you don't have any story. Because the point of this is the conflict, the evil transcends. Evil is always there. And if you wipe out evil, what do you got? About nothing. You wouldn't have had Order 66. You wouldn't have had any clone army overthrow. The Jedi would still be in power, although clandestine. The people would be sort of content with that. You wouldn't have an empire. Now, you could argue that maybe Anakin, pulls up his big boy pants and becomes the next Sith Lord, but I think he has ways to go, and he has to find another. He has to find another trainer. He has to find another mentor to continue his dark side path. But so what happened is there's this great battle between Mace Windu and Sidious, and it's not until the end that we find out that he's the Emperor when the dark lightning, the dark force lightning gets involved and starts to decay both Mace and Palpatine. And, unfortunately, Mace was on the short end of the stick, and he got
literally.
He was on the short end of the lightsaber, and he got blasted out the window. So that's what happened. And then what happened is we had the downfall of the Republic. We had Yoda into he had to go into hiding, and then we had Order 66.
So I think one thing you're forgetting here is that Mace Windu made the classic Jedi mistake, which is miscounting the number of Sith there are in any given room. He counted one Sith, and as we know, very rarely is there one Sith in any room. Usually it's two Sith, and if he had just counted properly, he wouldn't have got his hand cut off by old Anakin Vader there. So I definitely think that we should kind of keep in mind that what really happened there isn't necessarily it's not like the Emperor got the upper hand on him or he lost the fight. He got betrayed by Anakin. So what I think we're really saying here is, what if Anakin didn't cut off Mace Windu's hand as he was coming back to the Gras, right?
So yeah, so we'll basically start the prologue as this. Leading into the arrest of the senator, or the soon-to-be Supreme Chancellor, the Jedi are basically tipped that the senator is actually a Sith Lord. Thus, skipping forward, we're understanding that you already know that Anakin's already been planted the seed by Palpatine, whatnot. So what Windu is instructed to do is grab some Jedi Knights and young Anakin, because he's kind of the one that's involved in this, which I don't know why you would bring somebody that young, that raw of an apprentice to this type of situation, but that's neither here nor there, right? He's on his way there. So as the scene starts, obviously there are Jedi Knights there to arrest him, and then it's revealed that he has a lightsaber. He does some awkward Raiden type spin turn, dispatches of 3 or 4 Jedi Masters. fairly quickly, which, that's either here nor there for us, right? I thought they went down a little prematurely, extremely quickly for being Jedi Masters, not just Knights, but, we finally get to the point to where Mace is involved in the confrontation. He gets him down, and Anakin enters, conflicted as to what's going on. Windu goes to strike him, in which Sidious is trying to defend himself with Force Lightning. Obviously, Windu's lightsaber, similar to Rey's, are able to reproject his lightning back at him, and he's decaying his body, as well as Windu has taken some of the brunt of the Force. And then leading into this, where our what if starts, Anakin has a conflict to make as the Senator, or Palpatine, is calling out for help, and this is where we can really start the story.
So he doesn't attack Mace.
Right. We don't. I mean, he doesn't necessarily attack him, and this is where it's open to interpretation, right? Because one can say that Palpatine did a mind trick on him, and nobody knows, right? Because the story is really open. I mean, It went one way, but we can turn it any other way. It's a what if, right? So we can assume that he was mind tricked, right? I mean, is he that naive? I don't know. I mean, we've seen him do naive things, but.
So what are they? So let's say the Emperor is dead. So the president of the Republic is dead before they can call out Order 66. So there is still a Republican army. It is still under the nominal control of the Jedi. Mace Windu and Anakin Skywalker are now the only two people that know for a fact that the president, or the chancellor, the prime minister, or whatever the heck,
right,
we want to say the analog is, that person is a Sith Lord, and that they have committed, what will seem, because other people don't have magic powers to sense magic powers, will sure seem like a political assassination at the culmination of, this galactic scale war that leaves the Jedi in control of the politics of the New Republic and in control of the military of the New Republic. And so that, I think, should have enormous political fallout. Fallout. And I think that the people that would be most suspicious are not just going to be Palpatine's allies, but Palpatine's enemies, who are seeing, we're seeing the manipulation of these institutions of the Republic for a long time during the war, and we're calling them out. They're going to notice the Jedi doing the same exact thing because, cutting somebody in half isn't necessarily a super democratic way to change leadership. Like, say what you want about dessert, but when you have to exert violence to shift the power balance, that isn't democracy.
But wouldn't there be documentation on actually what happened? I mean, there's always a videotape. There's always.
Well, we are finding out in our reality that there does always seem to be a tape. And that is.
I mean, there's going to be.
So what we're saying is
there's going to be evidence, and
Anakin had a body cam on, is what happened.
Yeah, they're going to have to. Mace and Anakin are basically the two highest powers now. I mean, Yoda's there, but the two highest Jedi now who know what happened. So they've got to build a case to offset all this disruption that you're speaking of.
And thank goodness Anakin Skywalker isn't compromised in any way, and is not. Completely open to blackmail, not just on the count of will his wife just randomly die?
Well, he's already Darth Vader at this point, right?
Well, he becomes Darth Vader after. This is like the genesis of it, right?
Yeah. And Mace, he respected Mace. So to see Mace destroyed or not destroyed would definitely move him in an emotional direction. So I think we need to focus on, as far as the what if. So what happens next? Do Mace and Anakin, do they bond? Do they join forces?
Hug it out?
Yeah. Do they man, I'm glad you didn't die. Thanks so much for your help.
I'm Vader now, so
yeah, I'm.
But if Mace backs this Anakin Skywalker horse, and says, Leo, you've earned my trust. You showed up exactly when I needed you to show up. And you let me commit this murder, right? He's gonna back Anakin publicly and say Anakin's my backup, and this guy here would never keep a secret from the Republic. He would never lie to the Republic. He would never have some sort of underhanded, sneaky business that all of us would need to know about. And you'd cut to Anakin and he'd just be flop sweating because obviously he does have all this very secret, super sneaky business going on. And it's going to get harder and harder for him to hide that as, Padme's children raised by Padme on Naboo and Coruscant begin to demonstrate precocious force aptitudes that they would. I mean, and she's always around Anakin Skywalker, but they're not together. And if they were together, Mace Windu would tell us. So you find that Anakin has already compromised the Jedi regime from the start. And look, if someone is portrayed as a public liar to the degree that Anakin would once this relationship comes out, it would seriously undermine the faith of the people in their regime. Mm-hmm. And it would probably make them wonder why the Jedi overthrew their democratically elected governance at the last second when it sure looked like Palpatine was about to win the Clone Wars for the Republic.
Yeah, well, look at the guy. I mean, if you watch,
he's all scarred and twisted.
If you watch the tape, unlimited power, he said. I mean, he was basically damning himself. I mean, he exposed himself completely, and he damned himself for all time.
Counterpoint.
That's assuming that he had a tape. I mean, that there was actually actual footage you can actually document. Well, of course we saw it. We all saw it.
There is footage of some. We do know there is footage of some crimes because they talk about it at the Jedi Temple.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So because they have Anakin killing all those children on the tape.
My question: how many mechanisms would Palpatine already have in place in the event of his death to still make sure that his plans go?
Would he even think about that? Because he felt himself to be invincible
or give a shit.
He was untouchable.
Right. Yeah, so are you considering that he feels so full of himself and everything that he wouldn't even have any type of mechanisms in place?
There's no backup. Like we're talking about.
Well, he killed backup, as Ken said, because backup was Dooku and he's dead, and Anakin was backup. Yeah. But if this doesn't happen, I mean, Ken is kind of right? I mean, there may be a new threat of Sith, but he really was like the Sith ultimate. So there would have to be.
He was the OG.
Yeah, there would have to be somebody. And I'm just rewatching that scene as we're talking about this now. I mean, keep in mind, Anakin wasn't supposed to be here, so Anakin kind of
he snuck in.
He snuck in at the end.
Yep. And we so let's move ahead 10 minutes. Palpatine is dead, decapitated, sliced in half, cut in two, whatever we want to say. He's gone, gonzo. Anakin's standing there. Now, who comes in? Now we got Obi-Wan, who could definitely play a role here in reeling Anakin in. Maybe we don't have the Mustafar fight now. Now we don't have that.
I think Mace sends Anakin to Mustafar to deal with the Separatists. I honestly almost feel like the Separatists get literally exactly the same thing happens to them.
The only reason he went to Mustafar was because of Padme. He followed Padme there.
No. Palpatine sends him to Mustafar to kill all the Separatists.
Okay.
He tells them, my apprentice Darth Vader will be meeting with you, and you'll have you'll receive your reward.
That doesn't happen now.
Right.
So you think Mace would have that?
I'm thinking they find out that the Separatists are there, and that Anakin is the one they send because they trust him now, right? And that maybe is his, like, if you want to say his story arc, is he goes from, hey, we need you to spy on the Chancellor, by the way, we don't really trust you, all the way to, okay, so we no longer have questions about your loyalty vis-a-vis Palpatine since you proved that.
We trust you now. We trust you.
Why don't you go to Mustafar and deal with this? And he's there, and then like all these people on Mustafar would be telling him like, oh my God, Palpatine was working with us and we're like in cahoots and all this stuff. And he would probably flip out and kill them all. I mean, he's shown a proclivity to do that already by this time in the series, right? Because he murdered all those kids already on Tatooine.
So that's an interesting point. So if he went to Mustafar and Order 66 never happened, there isn't any turnaround of the clones. The clones are still cool. Basically, Palpatine had a regiment of shock troopers there, which they were kind of a new element. We didn't really know who they were. They might have been part of the Empire that he was building. so they weren't affected by Order 66. So that might not matter, and you might be right. Anakin gets there, finds out, oh, there's this whole conspiracy theory. Palpatine was working to, build this new galactic empire and take over, and there was a whole plot. And yes, he would decimate everybody.
And then he's going to be like, that's when he says the My Empire crap to Padme anyway. See, that's the tragedy in this, is that Anakin's fall to the dark side. Sure, Palpatine was like his boss for a while after he did it, but it's not like all that stuff existed without Palpatine. You know what I mean? Like he already has done his genocide stuff that you have to do in the hero journey. Like he's already done that. That's why he's so convinced that he's right. Like the reason, I mean, he does this thing for vengeance, but we see him seeing and foreseeing the death of Padme and knowing that it's an absolute certainty. So that's how he's going to act about everything. I mean, everything.
Yeah, just rewatching. I was just re-listening to that, obviously for copyright reasons. I don't want to play it, but for
we don't want to go to jail or anything.
Yeah,
right.
Michael Mouse, we don't want that.
Mouse jail. I heard they're building a prison next to Disney World already.
Right.
It's going to be all this podcast jail cruiser.
Right.
That's where all the podcast malefactors go.
And for committing one felony, you can spend 3 months on the galactic jail cruiser and live out your greatest fantasy of being incarcerated.
Of cleaning bathrooms on a Star Wars cruiser.
I mean, the toughest thing as we discussed this Mustafar thing is like, rewatching this scene for the last couple minutes, like at this point, Anakin is so far gone and broken. Like if he were not to make it there where Palpatine was being struck down by Mace, like, it's weird because like, it's kind of like the Jedi. I feel like the Jedi lose him at this point. He kind of defects away from the Order because at this point, if you see him, when he cries he needs him, at the point that we get to here, he already knows that Padme is going to die, allegedly, right? That he foresaw this vision that he can save her.
He's seen the plot.
Right, yeah. He's seen the plot that he was going to save her from death and he can keep her alive forever. So, it makes it an interesting thing as far as what happens to him, right? Because, he's already a loose cannon.
He's already far gone and everything.
He is.
You guys was saying that, he turned to Darth Vader at that point. But before that, wasn't he already deemed Darth Vader, dubbed Darth Vader?
Well, he wasn't dubbed, but he was
right after this.
It was right after this. After he kills him, he names him Vader.
Oh, he names him.
He says Rise.
I was thinking that you're watching the scene and everything.
So that's good. So here's the deal. He sees Palpatine in danger. He knows Palpatine can give him magic to sustain life, to bring the dead back. Immortality. So what? Yeah. Like, okay, now Palpatine's gone. So that storyline is over.
It makes it a perfect story though, that then like, you're right. So he goes to Mustafar and maybe he seeks true power at this point, right? I mean, there are Sith holocrons on Mustafar before, and this is EU stuff, and it's, I guess, become kind of canon, but this already kind of been like a Sith kind of haven. So who says he doesn't just venture around at this point? I mean, he's lost, and he seeks more power, right? Because this guy is already, at this point, he's already broken. So I'm guessing if he goes back to the council after this, as we do have to do a debrief, because there's 4 Jedi Knights, Jedi Masters who are dead. So there has to be a debrief in the council chamber. So they're going to have to debrief what the hell happened and explain, like, hey, and where are you, right? Like, where's your head at?
Where do you stand?
Yeah, exactly.
It's nothing twisted or anything where he sees, Palpatine getting killed and everything by Mace Windu, and Anakin decides he kills Windu himself and everything. So it's no scenario where as far as that where he just snaps or what have you.
Yeah, I don't see that. I don't see
like a 1v1 duel. I mean, at this point where Anakin is, he has no chance against Windu. Would destroy him with a lightsaber.
Windu was a very powerful fighter. He wasn't much of a diplomat, but from what I know of his story, he was a powerful fighter, and he lost very few battles. If he drew his saber, he was winning.
So where does Windu go from here?
I think
It'll be interesting to see how the council would deal with all of this, and would there be factionalism? There's something called the entropy of victory that says that if you win, you end up like your cohesiveness of your winning group ends up degrading, and you interfight with each other over time. So the question is, would the council pass on, ultimate power to a senator like they said they would do? Would they hold on to power for too long? Would they make a mistake and accidentally make Anakin's wife the president? and she demands him to be her security detail, and all of a sudden they're in the same stupid position they were in 15 minutes ago. It's interesting to fathom. Ken, you brought up something that I found interesting, which is, what if the difference is Anakin just can't find a speeder that he likes in time to make it over there before this confrontation? And I think that changes things significantly too, because then he would be extremely resentful and angry at Mace for sort of taking his agency. And Anakin's whole point is that he wants to never have someone else make a decision for him again. Like, he just wants to be in control.
And that's evil. That's Sith.
Right.
That's what they live and breathe.
I mean, yeah, like you're saying, he's kind of at this point leading up into the arrest. He's already kind of, in our eyes, he's gone at that point. Like, he's already made his decision that he's trying to find a vice to keep Padme alive forever for whatever reason. At the point, this is after he lost his mother, so he doesn't want to lose anywhere close to him. Yoda already sensed, remember recently through that scene as well, that he had kind of his, his Jedi psyche visit with him. I guess a psychiatrist visit. So Yoda already senses like the kid's broken and he needs help. And at this point,
Mace is privy to this too.
Yeah, well, Mace is like the dickhead uncle, right? He's very strict, very stern. He cares for him, but when he says he's not ready for the council, no, you shouldn't train him. He's just like that mean uncle that everybody had that doesn't hate you, but he's hard nosed, right? So
that kid's gonna crash that car.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. We all had one of those.
Don't he's just that. Run a republic. Don't put him in charge.
Don't you do it. Trouble. He'll just start killing kids. It's what he likes to do.
That's what he does.
But also, Ken, you brought up a big point as well. Like, remember, and Anakin said this: you don't kill him; he has to stand trial. So that brings another point. Like, so Windu has to explain. Other than, I don't know how you have to explain when there's like, dude, there's 4 Jedi Knights dead, so I had to kill him. But
there was no option.
If that's not enough reason for the council to understand why he executed him, but on the flip side, everybody, you know what I mean? They have the vices, whether it's some kind of like,
there's no way you could have subdued him to make sure that he does.
No matter what we say,
not at that point.
I'm going to say there's 2 words that would show up that.
Well, they didn't know Palpatine was who he was, right?
And if you asked me 5 years ago or 10 years ago, would people buy this, or would people believe like the actual truth? I'd say, of course they would. But now I don't know, because I feel like you could. There's going to be somebody out in the galaxy saying that, one, Palpatine being evil sure seems like a convenient thing for these people who are now running the Republic and have usurped control of the Republic from the democratically elected leadership who was doing evil stuff, who was democratically elected. Very convenient.
Them Star Wars Twitter accounts,
And listen, that's fake news. Yeah, Palpatine's not even dead. He's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like Walt Disney? He's sitting somewhere in cryogenics.
But he is. But here's the thing, T. Mitch. We know that factually is what he's doing. He is factually in a clone pod somewhere, gestating, waiting to come back eventually. So, it would make sense.
We didn't know that then. We're just saying.
We're saying that's what he actually was doing.
We know now.
We really did know this. We just weren't paying attention.
Well,
because there's some YouTuber out there who is going to try to tie this breadcrumb trail.
Why are there cloning pods on Mustafar?
Yeah, he was laying the breadcrumbs. You didn't notice this in 38 seconds. They were like, "Come on, man, really?" But there's somebody out there doing it right now, putting it together. The clips.
Well, send us some feedback. Come on. What's the internet thinking about this? This is heavy stuff, because as I first started thinking about this, so if you kill Palpatine, you eliminate the main aggressor in the entire Star Wars universe from the little tidbits we got in A New Hope, and then we saw him in Empire Strikes Back, and then we saw him again in Return of the Jedi, where he finally died. You basically, if you stop him at Revenge of the Sith, well, you'd have to change the title of the movie because that wouldn't make any sense.
Big fat L of the Sith.
Right. Yeah.
The big fat L of the Sith. I mean, you really stop the story there because now there's no conflict anymore. Now the Republic can going back to be the Republic, and you train Jedi and younglings.
Not necessarily. I don't believe so.
It's all torn up, man.
It's broken up because you got to think about this as well. At this point, he's still gaining, the backing. So think about this on the Outer Rim outside of Coruscant, right? The Hutts stay in power at that point then, right? So like Boba Fett, who says this guy doesn't go on some like tear, right? And he becomes some like,
warlord, like bad,
right?
Yeah, bad.
We don't know, the Hutts, or now we know. What about Mandalorians? Who says that Mandalorians don't come into power? And
Mandalorian's still there, right?
Correct.
Mandalore would still be existent without the
think about if that war doesn't happen, right? Because that war doesn't happen if this doesn't happen. There's no purge of Mandalore at that point.
Mm-hmm. Well, not at first, right? Not until
it would happen.
Really gets to stomp on the gas, and no Iron Lung, like just fully connected and able to do whatever he deems necessary as the final arbiter of what is necessary.
I think we're all in agreement, right, Hitch, that even if we take it that Mace Windu kills him, there's no way back for Anakin. No. Are we all in agreement to that? There's no way back. Like there's no reconciliation.
Yeah, well, Mace would have to do some fast backpedaling. He would have to really explain fast, like why he did it, what was going on, in order to convince Anakin that he needed to just take a breath. He needed to just take a breath.
I don't think he comes back.
You got to convince Anakin to give up Padme, I think, to really save him here. And I just don't see that as being possible. I just don't think so. I mean, plus Anakin, let's not forget Anakin's 19 stupid years old. It's not like he's like a 50-year-old man that's lived a whole life and actually had girlfriends with an S. Like, you know what I mean? It's just the one chick in the whole galaxy that he likes. And he's, you know what I mean? He's dealing with these economies of scale, and she's just going to die. And that's how the Force rewards
doesn't now. So this is the what if. This is what we have to start. So we have to say, where are we going with this? Are we still saying Anakin is corrupt? And he
has to be. He's broken at this point. Like he's pieces.
I think when you get in his way, like that's a problem. That's a problem here. And I think that there will be people that will get in Anakin's way and get in his way fast. And I think Obi-Wan's on the list, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if Anakin Skywalker, again at 19 stupid years old, has the nuance to win these diplomatic games. But again, if he is the hero of the Republic, the only way to keep him is to just give him a pass and let him have a wife and kids. That's it. Yeah. Short of allowing him to experience this family that he never had.
That's the if, right? We have to decide, is that appropriate? Does that make sense?
But he's not in charge. Mace is in charge, or the Jedi Council's in charge. God forbid Obi-Wan Kenobi is still bossing him around after he does all this stuff and literally sacrifices the rest of his life with the woman he loves, right? All on the altar of the Republic. And they're still going to keep him, like, they're still going to, like, not let him be in the council. They're still going to have these questions because he has that aura of shadiness about him because he is shady. He's doing shady stuff. He's, like, guarding his phone. You know what I mean? Obi-Wan Kenobi does not know his phone password. Right, there's no way.
He definitely has a lock on his iPhone. Yeah, his iPhone. He has a lock.
You can see Obi-Wan in the background trying to get into Anakin.
It's a 10-digit number combo.
Is it 4769?
What is it? Anakin, you must give me this passcode. And Anakin's just like, well, then you know all my secrets. No, it was easy to decide not to do it. It would be interesting to see if Anakin would, like, because Anakin accepts the manipulations of Palpatine almost without any question whatsoever. And then as soon as the Jedi try to shove him any direction, like toward less murder, like, you know what I mean? He's just up in arms right away. And like, no, you can't do that to me. You can't like even with Obi-Wan, he's like, you can't boss me around, old man. I know more than you. Like, I'm better than you at this.
Do you even think he after this scene? So
oh, he'll be back.
He unplugged his camera.
He'll be back.
Oh, yeah,
Ken, you got him in a tizzy.
He tripped over his camera.
Yeah, so what directly happens after?
what did I just do?
Literally,
no idea.
folks.
Didn't your light go kaput on you last time?
Oh, my light blew out. Yeah, my light's on. It's on. So we're just using ceiling light. Yeah, it's been one of those things. So I don't know what happened. Technical difficulties live, but like what I was saying was like how do they bring him in? Like, do you think after this happens, like, you know, because like we talked about, the council has to debrief Windu and figure out what happened. You know, Yoda has to talk to him. Do you even think that Anakin goes back, or does he pulls not an Ahsoka, but he just goes rogue at this point, right? Like, he runs to Padme, like, hey, look, this happens. We need to get off the planet. You know, is he on that, like...
They haven't really articulated what are the consequences.
Well, that's up to
a Jedi having a secret wife, right? Like, that's not something that I think... I mean, obviously, it's expulsion from the Jedi Order, and I guess, like, if you're a lifetime Jedi, you sort of don't have any, like, stuff. So we saw how that went with Ahsoka, but you would think they also might come asking questions about, oh, I don't know, all these dead children on Tatooine, or all the other crazy stuff he's been doing, exploding things and jumping off of ships, and you know, someone might have questions for him if he's not protected by the umbrella of the Jedi. Right. So you know. I don't see there's a way for them to keep him out of the governmental order anyway, because he is extremely popular. And, you know, don't forget Palpatine changed his name so he wouldn't be Anakin Skywalker. Like, he didn't want him to be Anakin. He wanted him to be another creature of his own creation. And I see echoes of Stalin in this, where Stalin would, like, if you started like doing a good job and people would be like, hey, DP, you're doing a real great job with the grain dole. Great. Hey, maybe one day you'll be in charge of everything, instead of Comrade Stalin, and then Comrade Stalin would shoot you. That's just how that would happen, right?
Sorry about that, DP.
Hey, you know, casualties everywhere.
You're bad for being so efficient with the grain. You know, you have to be crappy.
So I guess walk us through like the political fallout of everything how this would occur on Steel City.
I just don't know if the populace buys the truth, if it's presented to them here, right? That's the real question is, you know, if all of a sudden John Wilkes Booth was like, hey, I shot Abraham Lincoln, but there was a really good reason, and that reason was that Abraham Lincoln was secretly an agent of the South the whole time and had been working with the South to create the whole Civil War, and now that we've got the South on their knees, he's going to turn around and work with them moving forward. And that's going to be bad. So that's why I shot him, right? Would anyone have believed that even for 10 minutes? No.
If
he backed it up with evidence, if he had...
Okay, so no cameras, no body cam and everything, you know, which is...
Well, then it's a far-fetched story and no one's going to buy it unless you're a really good salesman.
Then what happens with Mace Windu?
Mace Windu is not a salesman. That's the thing about it being Mace, is that he's a lot of things, right? But he's not a flourishy guy. And he wouldn't sugarcoat it either.
So how does the fallout happen? Like, you know, so we're still believing that Palpatine is relatively a good senator, right?
Yeah, I think Order 66 is exposed somehow. We'd have to figure that out.
Great point. Because I was actually going to say that for another, like, what if or whatever. But posit this: does Order 66 still happen? That's why I was talking about the now Palpatine still have mechanism in place in case of his death. These chips are still in the clones' heads and everything. Does Order 66 still happen at some point?
At some point, I mean, you could say that
who's exposed
years down the road, but Palpatine initiates it. If he's not there to initiate it, then it never happens.
One wonders what would happen to the loyalties of the clone troopers in the event that Palpatine dies. Is there some second setting. I'm still of the opinion that Palpatine is if Palpatine's dead, nothing matters anyway, because he's a complete nihilist and a complete, narcissist. I mean, he's the emperor of a whole galaxy, man.
You guys really believe he's that narcissistic where everything just stops as soon as he's dead? Nothing.
Think about the tree for him. Think about like a flow chart, DP, where it's like, this happens. Am I alive still? Then I have more plan. If not, I'm dead. Like, why would he have a secondary plan if the whole point of the Sith
is him
as we
living.
Find out, is him living?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's why I'm saying, like,
regular bad guy scenarios. I mean, if you want a positive trope, put like different mechanisms in place in case of my death, you guys are still going to go down. In case something happens with me or what have you.
So maybe there's a timer on Order 66, is what you're saying, where if a couple months and then all of a sudden it just happens and nobody knows what the deal is.
Nobody knows what or why or whatever.
All of a sudden, all the Jedi are just getting hunted down by these clones, and nobody
knows why.
Even Mace and Anakin are like, "What the hell?" We have no clue. And the clones are saying crazy stuff like "Glory to the Emperor," and I'm like, "Who the hell is the Emperor?" Like, what?
Did we get rid of him like 2 movies ago?
Yeah.
Because it's going a whole new
but the whole thing, I guess my point is the mechanism is still in place. So if you're talking about Order 66 gets exposed, how does it get exposed?
Yeah, it makes it tough because, like you're saying, he's so like story centric, as Hitch says. Like, there is no 2. 2 was Dooku, and he threw Dooku to the wolves. So like,
he was using Dooku too. Like, Dooku's whole purpose was to be the Palpatine, like the Jefferson Davis. I think about, I'm sorry guys, I think about the American Civil War when I think about the Star Wars Civil War all the time for some reason.
Right.
Probably because that's George Lucas's main Civil War.
Similar, yeah, it is. It was, yeah.
But like Jefferson Davis working with Abraham Lincoln doesn't make any sense. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it would be really hard. Like, it would be really hard, Ken, for you right now to convince me that happened. Like, if you would have to have so much shit to show me, to prove that you were right. It would have to be like you would have to have a letter from Lincoln to Davis that had Lincoln's DNA on it for me to even think for a second any of that was possible.
A stack of personal letters between the two,
right?
Wouldn't do it.
It would, but you would have to have them.
Yeah, because as we're talking about this, like all they're going to do is as Hitch is saying, is all we can really do is take the body to the Senate and say, like, look at this guy, he's dead, he's a Sith Lord. How would they know that he was evil? Like, you know what I mean? He's covered so many tracks.
We literally deal on a regular basis with this exact issue where someone's dead and there's a whole, question of the official version of events for why they're dead. And then we are submitted evidence to us, right? Sometimes video, to your point, Ken, right? In real life, this happens, right?
Yes.
Where video is submitted to us in real life, unfortunately, of these things happening. And there is a certain segment of people that cannot be convinced that's the case. It's just, it's happening right now.
They're seeing it right there, but they cannot be convinced that that's actually what happened.
So if you're talking about evidence, if we don't have any video evidence, there's no paperwork, no paper trail that Palpatine left, nothing, everything just died with him. So there's no existence of any type of evidence, paper trail or whatever, any type of thing that would lead up to or lead back to Palpatine having some sort of conspiracy, some sort of evil, going on with his motivations. There's nothing like that going on.
There is some, but those are the allies, right, in the Senate, as we know, and when they're doing the council meetings. They're not going to come out and say, so it's going to be a split house even more. The house is already split, and now the people know that, like, their guy that they're dubbing to take over and give them more power is gone. Yeah, right? So it becomes everybody looking over.
So they have no loyalty to him if he's dead, right?
Yeah, but then not. But it's kind of like it becomes a free for all, right? We've seen this kind of we saw this in the last episode of The Mandalorian. When they had the council, like Thrawn's coming back, kind of like it's a similar situation of there's no central power figure, so everybody's kind of like on their own thing, but there's no glue to it. So I kind of feel like it's almost like the Shadow Council goes into effect, to where there are maybe pieces like you're saying. Order 66 is known, but who's going to hit the button, who has the authorization to execute it, and things of that nature. Keep in mind, if they do it at that point as well, I think the Jedi would be way more equipped, because when it happens, they're kind of like, some are still coming back from the war. Obi-Wan's not around. Like, they're kind of hit like with a sucker punch. At this point now, they're on the offensive. So I think that they would be more inclined to deal with the Order 66 than they would be otherwise.
So you're sounds like you guys are thinking that Palpatine's dead. That really doesn't change anything. All the mechanisms that he had in mind all still happen. Anakin still rises to power, takes over, starts a galactic empire. Order 66 happens. All the clones destroy the Jedi. So everything still happens.
I think there's one key difference here in that, let's say, who's going to take over the political settlement at the end of this? Is Palpatine's party going to remain in charge or not? And
yeah, I think Naboo is out of it at this point. Naboo is
gone. My question is, if we are to look at the legislative minority, you know what I'm saying? Because the way these things work in parliamentary systems is Palpatine, like if Palpatine is disgraced in some way, right? It's likely to be the opposition that forms the next government. And who are the opposition leaders was Bail Organa and Mon Mothma and Padme Amidala. That's who was in charge of the opposition. So it's very likely that the people that are most likely to believe the Jedi and thus go along with the Jedi plan and thus be in power at the end of this process are,
and you still have the Separatists, and
they're still out there kicking around. They haven't been wiped out.
The banking guild would still be there, as the robots in charge of the money. They would still be in power. So you'd have a little bit of a struggle at first, but I think at some point you're going to say that the person that speaks the best and can pull together their ideas the quickest is the one that's going to be in power at this point, who's going to rule the Senate, who's going to be in the big chair. And that, I think we have to discuss that, because that's important, because if it's Padme, then Anakin is still on the horizon. He's still there.
If it's Padme, how does he not think of this as his empire? I mean, he's at best Prince Albert to Queen Victoria. I mean, at a certain point. So, he gets kicked out of the Jedi, and where's he go? Goes to
politics,
the White House, where he is the first gentleman, and then raising his kids. But he's still this crazy war hero, right?
And that's interesting, because I had this thought too. What if Anakin and Padme raise the twins?
Then they become
a
evil.
Normal family.
Honestly, it doesn't become
another podcast.
It doesn't become a rule of 2; it becomes a rule of 3. Because I feel like,
oh man, Anakin
he's so ripped from the Jedi at this point that those are 2 more Sith apprentices, or if we don't go the Sith route, Dark Jedi, right? Because if he's outcast the way he is at this age, and we said it at 19, he's just gonna turn on him, regardless of what we think, whether he's a Sith or not. He turns on the Jedi if they outcast him. So then he raises these children with the Force being out of control. So think about this, as we talked about it. They couldn't control him as it is, right? So now he has no master. He's full of rage and hate and anger. And it's all against the Jedi at this point. I think it makes him almost as unstoppable at that point. So it will be an interesting story.
I think maybe Padme gets briefed it on Order 66, and so Anakin knows about it. And so he just starts thinking to himself, I can fix this real easy. I know I got an easy button that we can hit it. He starts telling Padme, if we just took care of those Jedi, we wouldn't have to worry about them coming in and killing another Chancellor, which would be all of a sudden his number one thing that he would never want to happen.
That's his big hinge pin. That's the thing that he always goes to. I've got Order 66 and I'll do it. That's how he maintains his role.
And I think the clones would love that if he were in charge of them. I think that they would welcome it being him. They seem to have a lot of affection for Anakin. So General Skywalker just being General Skywalker, not Jedi General Skywalker, makes a lot of sense, and it would be easy for the Chancellor to make that happen for him.
Mm-hmm.
And you put him at the head of an army and send him wherever you want. Maybe to Mustafar, maybe to the banking clan system. Maybe you got to mop things up. Maybe you have to teach someone a lesson. And then all of a sudden he's doing a lot of the stuff he was doing, like you said, right? Right, Ken? It's not a whole lot different except no Palpatine.
Right. So everybody knows, everyone can see who's pulling the strings. Everything's out there. It's all out there. You're either on this side or you're on this side. And you got to pick.
Like we are now.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to pick a side and if you pick the wrong side, then, well.
Right.
And the wrong side is the side with President Padme and General Anakin, the guy that just literally did all this cool stuff they keep putting in the press, including landing that capital ship somehow that was crashing on Coruscant. So like it's making a choice against that is what you'd be counting on the Republic to do, and they wouldn't. They never would. So we come back to the idea. I think that absolute power is what is the corrupting influence here. Not even necessarily Palpatine himself. It's that you can't have that much. You can't have that much power over people. It's bad.
I don't think we'd see Vader. We wouldn't see we just wouldn't get there. We wouldn't get to that point because there wouldn't be that battle on Mustafar between Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Right.
It wouldn't happen. It has to not happen.
I don't think that battle wouldn't happen, and we wouldn't get Vader, but we would get an anti-Jedi Anakin.
A really angry Anakin.
I don't think it'd be angry. It would be anti-Jedi. I think the conflict between him and the Jedi would come to a head. Because
I like the idea of them taking his kids and him just losing his shit over it.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
because it's irresponsible to have we know it's irresponsible to have Force users not being trained because you end up with Sith if you do that on account of people being very, very selfish ultimately in the end of the day. So, I think that would change things a little bit. And I would be interested to see what a full, what that relationship would look like. Would Anakin be satisfied being in the shadows as a second banana? Would that be Padme is the only person I could conceive of that he would be okay with being the second banana for. But I think that would be something that would be tough. Just because, having to, suppress the part of you that wants to just act and do things and knows things, right? And knows what's right. I think would be really hard for Anakin to do. And I think that would be what unraveled him in the end was knowing that Padme was wrong about some things and not being able to stop her. And that would just drive him nuts.
Bonkers.
Yeah, it's just a different road to where Anakin's going to end up going anyway. He may not end up donning a Vader suit, but he's going to end up just being, he's going to end up, in a crazy type of realm.
So basically, things roll forward as they were. We're saying there's really no change.
Really, yeah. On this What If episode, we can technically say, I think it's safe to say that there's no way stopping the Juggernaut known as Anakin, right? Regardless as if Palpatine survived or died.
He's rolling through, okay.
Yeah. I don't think, because as I watched the scene, looking back at that movie and the whole interaction leading up to it, even beyond the killing, he was already gone. He literally showed up there to kind of save Palpatine. That was the whole motive of him getting there, not to see what's going on. He knew that, oh shit, they're going to kill him. Let me go save him because he's trying to save my life. I just said
the coldest killer in the entire galaxy over there to do the one thing that he can't do, which is kill this guy. The one outcome that's bad for Anakin is if Palpatine gets killed, and he literally sent Samuel L. Jackson with a lightsaber over there. That's not even a euphemism. That's literally what he did.
That's literally what happened. And
he's just like, oh shit, he's gonna kill that guy. He's just gonna.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
But we can't have that. So now the deed's done. What is he? He's gonna freak out. Yeah. And I would be interested to see how Yoda would react to that. I think there's a lot of differences in Anakin's motivation being more pure and him not being lied to by Palpatine. I think when you take the lie of his dead family out, suddenly he becomes much more interested in finding the kids if they're gone, much more interested in controlling them and making that be the reason that he's suddenly with Padme more, not even about her, it's about the kids.
Right.
I think there's a lot of things that would be different about that character. And I think there's a lot of things that would be different about the general outcome. But I'll say, like I said before, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have thought to write it as if, the people thought the Jedi were lying about this. I wouldn't have thought of that, and now I do.
Yeah.
So
well,
that's like my number one idea.
We definitely live in a reality that physical evidence, visual evidence, isn't even proper evidence.
To have that. We have to have that backup. The body cam. We have to
close.
review the videotape somehow.
We're close to like generative programs being able to create those evidentiary records anyway, man. Right. And then once you're there, like we're almost there, like in 5 years, our voices and, this podcast probably wouldn't be hard to replicate without our input in 10 years or 5 years or something like that. These guys are so far beyond that you present them with any evidence and they're just going to say it's bullshit. So, and listen, it's not like we're not dealing with that right now in our own reality where people are just like looking at stuff happening and going like, nah.
Yeah,
nah.
That's not real. That didn't happen.
Yeah, fake.
Right. Yeah.
I blame YouTubers. Honestly, I think that's who's at fault for this. All the YouTubers.
That's us, though, isn't it? We're on YouTube.
We're StreamYarders, we'll say, right?
We're not YouTubers.
Nah. But yeah, guys, it's been a fun episode, definitely. But I guess on this docket, we didn't really get too far as changing the story. As we digressed into it, we kind of found out that really it's one of those like there really is no what if because the person we know, the events may have changed a little bit, but I don't think we could alter the outcome, so to speak. Which would be interesting because I know we talked about it and we talked about the world between worlds, and this is one of those things like we discussed. Maybe Ahsoka can't change, right? There's nothing you can do at this point. He's gone. I mean, literally, if we think about even going further back, like the first discussion when he kind of talks about Plagueis, right?
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have to like delete that conversation, and that's where this all started.
So
right?
what if that's where the what if happened?
It would have to because.
What if Anakin was just like, gone, you're full of malarkey. I'm not listening to your all that.
You would just stab the president in a theater. Let me tell you, you kill a president in a theater, you get notoriety.
Yeah, because it happened. It happens in history all the time. Ford Theater, very famous, right? Box seat.
I already talked about John Wilkes Booth once on this episode. I already name dropped him. So like people would know Anakin Skywalker killed Palpatine. Like it would be like, well, they were at a ballet and he just cut his head off right in the middle of the ballet.
Right in the middle, right at the encore.
Like, and it would be like if William Tecumseh Sherman did it. You know what I mean? Like, they're like so synonymous. You know what I mean? The president and like the best general, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it would be a shock. We'd still be talking about it right now. Like we're talking about what actually happened. We'd be talking about that hypothetical forever. I mean, Sherman would be like reviled. We'd hate him. We'd hate that guy. I mean, not just Georgia. I mean, Georgia does hate him a lot. But other places would also hate him too. All right, that's all I got.
Yeah. So DP, as far as next week, do you have any ideas? As far as
well, we broke the story, so we'll talk afterwards on how we're gonna use the chat
device,
the chat device to flex to fill it out and everything. But yeah, I mean, this is it. So this is what we'll be doing for like the next few weeks, positing what ifs on Star Wars.
Right. It definitely is. It's definitely been an enjoyable episode, and it's been fun. It's it gets the gear spinning, with all of us, and I'm sure everybody listening and watching, having their discussions with their friends, families, and significant others, as far as like, well, what do you think happened? So I think these what if anything creates fun, like very, very, very open dialogues, right? Because like we sit there and talk, and I mean, it's one of those things that we can go on all night talking about like, what do you think would happen? So I think when the Marvel introduced the kind of concept of the what ifs, it kind of allowed the vice for more discussion points. And as we talk about, it's easy to tie into current day things, as Lucas tied a lot of his stuff into current politics and even as we see, he was much more of a soothsayer, so to speak, when we look at where we are now and some of the vices we've had in other movies. So, very, very interesting story. But yeah, guys, we're going to keep this rolling, and until next week, this is Away.
This is the way.